Welcome back to the show. I'm NimbleThor, and for the next 5 minutes, I will go over the most interesting games I played last week, spending less than 1 minute per game. And I played everything from hardcore old school RPGs to strategy card games, and even a gacha game with no in-app purchases. So thank you so much for stopping by, and here are my 5 quick mobile gaming recommendations of the week, with my personal favorite at the end as always. Fist of Truth is a strategy card game with over 700 cards, 500 campaign levels, online multiplayer, and a unique system that allows us to sacrifice a card to get 1 extra mana for a single round. With 4 cards in our hands that each have an attack, defense, and a mana cost, and 2 mana at the start of every match, we deploy a card to a 3x3 grid and then press the punch to start the round. Cards that we deployed and cards that the opponent deployed then clash at the same time, attacking anything in the opposing lane. The cards are interesting and the combat is fun, but the rewards from quests and campaign levels are so small that getting the best cards will take forever unless you buy in-app purchases to acquire new cards, of course. And this, sadly, means that the PvP is rather unfair. The game requires online access, it takes up 170 MB of space, it's out on Android and iOS, and my final verdict is that you should consider playing it if you enjoy strategy card games, but just be aware that the endgame PvP is pay to win. Maze Shadow of Light is a new action RPG with a great art style and interesting combat system with multiple skill combos and a system that allows us to seamlessly switch between 2 characters at any time during combat. The story campaign missions quickly become very difficult, forcing us to grind older levels for better gear, but there is no lack of variety in the game with both PvP against bots, real-time PvP, raids, dungeons, and mazes in addition to the campaign missions. The item unlocking and upgrading system makes the game extremely grindy, and the PvP is sure to turn pay to win, sadly. But if you enjoy the combat, you might just have a great time playing through some of the campaign missions. The game requires online access, it takes up 837 MB of space, it's out both on Android and iOS, and my final verdict is that you should play it if you enjoy action RPGs and don't mind the grindy upgrading system. In the mobile space, Dawnbreak Nightwitch is something truly unique because it's a gacha RPG with no auto system and no in-app purchase gacha system. Yes, you heard that correct. Instead, we're bombarded with advertisements, but if playing in offline mode, none of those will appear. With only 3 different characters, all of which feel nearly the same to play as, and a very limited amount of items to unlock, the game can actually be completed rather quickly, at least in comparison to the typical nearly endless gacha RPGs out there. The graphics are fine, but they're really nothing out of the ordinary, and combat grows stale after a few hours, but as for gacha RPG monetization, this game is rather innovative, having us watch advertisements instead of buying in-app purchases. The game can be played offline, it will set you back 630 MB of space, it's out on Android and iOS, and my final verdict is that despite the interesting take on a gacha RPG, I wouldn't recommend it unless you really hate gacha RPGs primarily because of the monetization, but you still want a somewhat similar experience, in which case the game is definitely worth checking out. Mayhem Combat is an action platform fighting game with both single player, free-for-all multiplayer, and 1 versus 1 PvP matches, made by the Real Boxing and Gravity Rider developers. A bunch of different characters and fun weapons that can be upgraded by collecting enough item and character cards keeps the combat interesting, but grinding enough gold to buy the upgrades is very tedious, and the very limiting energy system drags out the progression of the game. The game requires online access, it takes up 343 MB of space, it's available both on Android and iOS, and my final verdict is that despite the interesting platformer take on the fighting genre, the controls aren't amazing and the monetization is sadly pay to win. I had higher expectations for this game, but I can't wholeheartedly recommend it, at least in its current state. So just skip this one, for now at least. Vampire's Fall Origins is an open-world, 2D, old-school RPG with no in-app purchases, no advertisements, no pay-to-win, no loot boxes, nothing! And I'm loving every second of it. The character and story progression is interesting, the quests and overall gameplay is very difficult, and the turn-based combat allows for many different strategies depending on the opponent we're facing. Oh, and did I mention that the game has PvP too? The graphics won't impress, but the dark and gritty hand-drawn 2D style has a certain charm to it, and the game is one of the most interesting old-school RPGs I've ever played till date. The game is offline playable, it takes up 148 MB of space, it's out on Android and iOS, and my final verdict is that if you enjoy old-school RPGs, then you should definitely play this game, as it's my favorite game of the week, and I'm quite confident that you will like it as well. Thanks for watching, let me know which game was your favorite, and until next time, just keep gaming, stay awesome, and I will see you guys around.